At the end of Red Bull's press release, the team said that they'd announced their 2025 driver lineup at a later date. Now, while it hasn't been confirmed, Red Bull is expected to promote Liam Lawson from the Visa CashApp RB to become Max Verstappen's new teammate. Now, Yuki Tsunoda would stay at VCARB, and the Formula 2 Championship runner-up, finisher Isaac Hadjar, would likely replace Lawson alongside Tsunoda. Now, Lawson would be an interesting choice because he's only made 11 starts in Formula 1, while Tsunoda is more experienced with 4 full seasons under his belt. In an article written by Chris Metland from Racer.com, he brought up an important point about Red Bull not learning from its mistakes in the past. We've seen a couple of young drivers fail as Verstappen's teammate. Of course, Pierre Gasly got promoted to Red Bull, then failed to deliver and got sent back to Red Bull's junior team. Alexander Albon was given a chance, didn't deliver, and they dropped him altogether. And as Chris Metland said, Lawson might be the driver to buck the trend. But given Red Bull's history with the second driver in recent years, history is very much against Lawson. The link to this article is in the video description below. So Matt, staying with you on this one. Is Red Bull making a mistake again by promoting Lawson over Tsunoda?
If that's the case, and we'll kind of all believe it to be, and we'll probably won't find out till we come back into the next grid tonight in the new year. I don't know. I've always been quite high on Liam Lawson, watching him come through all the junior categories, more so than Tsunoda, perhaps. But you have to feel sorry for Yuki if this is again the case. Again, he's being overlooked. He got the young driver test after the Grand Prix at Yas Marina a couple of weeks ago. Team were happy with what he did. He said he felt very comfortable in the car. Of course, he's going to say that because he wants to get the promotion. But he went well. I don't know what. Maybe now with the less of the Honda link, and of course we've got Red Bull and Ford coming together over the next couple of years. Maybe there's less of a push to get a Japanese driver on the grid in the, or even into the big team. Perhaps Lawson last year when he came in for Daniel, when Daniel had his wrist injury after Zandvoort or from Zandvoort onwards, was very impressive. And he's done a decent job again at the back end of this season. So it will be good to see him on some of the other tracks that we've not seen him at the beginning of the year in the top team, if that's the case. Interesting also that you mentioned Gasly, Josh. We had a couple of years ago when there was too many Red Bull drivers in the pool and not enough places to put them. We were having them siphoned off towards Super Formula. That's not happening so much anymore. So there was sort of Gasly was in that holding pattern, wasn't he, for a little while, and then came into the big team before going backwards again. As I said to you guys just before we went on the air, and we were just discussing this, all Red Bull need to do realistically is find someone not so much akin to Mark Webber, who again in the Vettel era, who was there, and to use the line, not bad for a number 2 driver, and that's all they need. Verstappen can be there, head honcho, and win the races and go for the championship. But as we've seen this year, Red Bull finished 3rd in the constructors with the world champion in their cars. First time that's happened in 40 years, where the world champion driver isn't in the top 2 in the constructors championship. And as we talked about with Perez's point record this year, it's just been woeful. They just need someone with a decent pair of hands that's not going to get into too many scrapes throughout the season, is competent in qualifying. I mean, Perez's qualifying record this year has been terrible, especially in the second half of the year, which hasn't obviously helped towards his point total. So I like Lawson, but I think the overriding look at, if that is going to be the case, the overriding look at it again is, why is Tsunoda continually being overlooked?
Yeah, Matt, I totally agree with you. Like you said, I also feel really bad for Yuki Tsunoda because, like, what else does he have to do to prove to Red Bull that he can be an at least somewhat competent teammate to Max Verstappen? Tsunoda can't drive as badly as Sergio Pérez did this season, can he? But we won't really know until you really give him a shot. To me, like you, also agreeing with you on this point, Matt. I'm also very high on Liam Lawson as well. I think he's a very talented race car driver who definitely deserves his spot on the Formula One grid. But thing is, only 11 starts in Formula One. If I was Red Bull, I'd probably want him to at least get maybe 1 full season in this VCARB, maybe 2, and then depending on how the situation with the second driver goes, then you decide. to promote him, but I'm afraid, like Chris Metlin said, that Red Bull could be making the exact same mistakes as we've seen in the past, where you promote a young driver who wasn't ready for this moment yet prematurely, and then it all goes wrong. And then I have a feeling once we get to the summer break, we might be having the exact same conversation, talking about Red Bull replacing a Liam Lawson with someone else. Yeah, it seems to be the case with Red Bull, last few cycles with Gasly and Albon, and could be Liam Lawson if he ends up getting to see it and disappointed. There's a lot of pressure on a young driver whenever you're driving a Red Bull car, especially when you have a 4-time world champion like Max Verstappen. It seems like Ben Verstappen's teammate is a curse, because if you're his teammate, you usually don't end up surviving within the team. And if Liam Lawson can survive, do enough, to help the team win the constructors and not be too terribly off from Max, then that would be obviously really good for Liam, and then we won't have to have this discussion again. But Yuki Tsunoda, I just don't understand what Red Bull has against this guy. And in my opinion, if I were Red Bull, I would probably, promote Tsunoda, see how he gets along. If he does well enough to satisfy the team, then great. But if Tsunoda doesn't do well, then you can always just send him back to VCARB and promote Liam Lawson then. By then, Liam Lawson would have some more Formula One racing experience under his belt, and that would probably serve better for Liam. And looking at how Yuki Tsunoda performed in the postseason test in Abu Dhabi, it seemed like the team was extremely happy with him, and he did all of the right things. But still, they're not very high on Yuki to get this seat. That they prefer Liam Lawson. If I was Yuki, I would make 2025 my absolute last year with this program, because I would feel disrespected, belittled, like this team doesn't believe in me at all. And I would rather be somewhere where I'm appreciated. And I know Honda obviously really likes Yuki, and Aston Martin, they're switching to Honda in 2026. Fernando Alonso, he plans to stay into the new regulations. And we all know the situation with Lance Stroll. He's basically going to have a Formula One seat until he decides that he doesn't want to do this anymore. So there are real no Formula One opportunities probably won't be any real Formula One opportunities for Yuki, over there at Aston Martin Honda in 2026. So I don't really know where Yuki goes from here. It's just a real unfortunate situation if he ends up not getting a call to go up to Red Bull.
I think the one embarrassing fact on this is that I believe that Yuki Tsunoda now is the most experienced in Toro Rosso, AlphaTauri, VCAR, Racing Bulls, whatever you want to call it, Minardi driver in that team ever. Because I can't think of a driver who's stayed there as long as he has, been as consistent as he has, and hasn't been promoted up. I'm genuinely struggling. It's been, 4 seasons now, 21? So since then. So I can't believe it. Ricardo did 2 different stints there, but even then, it was 2 years and 2 years, wasn't it? So 4 consecutive years. It is a bit of a joke, isn't it, to have that? So, go on.
Sorry, guys. Can I take you guys and the viewers on a quick Liam Lawson related history lesson? I talked about Gasly being punted off to Super League Formula a couple of years ago when they didn't have places for him to go. In 2021, when there were, again, too many Red Bull drivers for the seat, Liam Lawson and Alex Albon went to the DTM.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, I remember
in
that.
Ferraris. Liam Lawson, who'd never done any GT racing before, as far as I'm aware, and can Google, turned up at Monza for the first race and won. Then he won twice more, both times at the Red Bull Ring, fittingly. And then in the season finale at the Norris Ring, took 2 pole positions and was in line for the championship before all the Mercedes is ganged up on him. And Maxi Gertz nicked through and won the championship by 3 points. And he said, I'm not doing any more GT racing. I'm done. Because I clearly proved that I'm fast enough. And then ended up going back to, I think he ended up in Super League Formula after that, from memory. But
Super Formula in Japan.
Yeah. So Super League Formula was very different. That was the football thing.
Let's not go there.
From years ago. But he's clearly a talented guy. If they get him in, I mean, we know that VCARB, Minardi, Toro Rosso, whatever it's called this week, thing wasn't the best car on the grid, especially towards the back end of the season. They kind of trailed off. Then get him in the Red Bull car. I think he will give Verstappen at times, not all the time, but at times, a run for his money.
He's certainly got the aggression to match Verstappen. It could be a very fiery relationship. I mean, what was it?
And that's what.
Yeah,
with the Russian thing a couple of weeks
pissed
ago, I
off
think
Alonso.
the finger down the straight and then getting a song after him. Get out of the way! I'm Liam Lawson. And I think what is it? He rubbed up Fernando Alonso wrong.
And Perez. He also got Perez
too.
Well.
Yeah. Forgot about that. And there was another one. I can't remember what he was. I think even Lance Stroll at one point said, "Who is this guy?" I think it was in Brazil.
Yes.
Yeah, it came over the radio.
In the sprint race, I think.
Yeah, it was. And we were all
standing in the sprint race because, of course, Lance didn't make it to the grid in the Grand Prix.
Yes, yeah. I can't believe he's still even going to be on the grid if he can actually make it to the grid for once. But yeah, I think I stood back in the commentary box and said something along the lines of, "That's rich coming from you." So it's quite funny. But yeah, I've got a good feeling. Kvyat might have more starts, but they were 3 different stints. Good point. I forgot about Danny Kvyat. Let's get him alongside Max Verstappen. That would be very tasty. Yeah. Well, Kelly Piquet at the back of the garage would be quite very interesting to have the camera on half the time in the race. And I thought that was so sweet, just to wrap up that Verstappen segment where he got asked by the Red Bull admin, congratulations, how does it feel to become a dad? He says, well, I'm already a bonus dad, so this just feels pretty much normal for me. I thought, that is such a sweet thing. But for Danny Kvyat, I just felt a little like, like that, just like melting. It very much is wicked, isn't it, for them two? But yeah, I let Danny Kvyat's happy. Where is he now? Ferrari in World Endurance GT Championship.
What was he doing this year?
He was
Lamborghini.
He was with Lamborghini in the World Endurance Championship, and he was also looking into options for next year, racing in Japan in the Super Formula Series.
Oh, I did read that. Yeah, I thought that would be a good idea for him actually, because he'd be very competitive there in that championship when it's falling up and down at the moment. But yeah, and there's the Winter Series, of course, coming up soon. There's going to be Dorian Pan, who's going back over there for a couple of races, and she's just announced that she's doing F1 Academy again. Get her in the seat. Come on, get Alice Abbey pulling. Come on, get them all in. There's Alice Powell there. That's the manager. But yeah, we'll keep you up to date with everything when we come back in the new year, because everyone now is sort of shutting down for the Christmas period. That's why we've got the news today. So don't expect any news until 2025 on who's going to be driving in the...
Otherwise we'll have to do an emergency show.
Yeah, well, we said the same thing, and then all of a sudden Lewis Hamilton decided in January that he's deciding to race for Ferrari, so we had to do an emergency show. So before we wrap up Formula One, anybody got anything else to say on it?
I think we've
Good.
kind of covered points.
I said, well, Josh, just one more thing on Sergio Perez, right quick. The one I know this is something that gets thrown around a lot, but what happened to Sergio Perez at Red Bull needs to be studied. It was like, what happened to this guy? I remember when he won it in Bahrain. I believe he ended up spinning and then had to come all the way from the back of the field, drove all the way to the front, and to win that race. That was a spectacular moment, probably my favorite Checo moment of all time. That was such a spectacular driving in to see him, get out of the car so elated, then jump into the arms of his team, and they're all chanting "Checo, Checo, Checo." That was quite a remarkable moment, and all of the scenes. That was the best of Sergio Perez right there. That was Checo at his absolute best, and that's how I want to remember him as a Formula One driver. But as we know, we live in "what have you done for me lately" type of situation. So I think that's probably going to be a blimp. And that a lot of people are going to remember, if this is it for Checo, they're probably going to remember how it all ended. And a lot of this goes down to, obviously, the car not working out as well. But, drivers like Max Verstappen, even if something was truly wrong with the car, he was able to adapt, make the most of it. But a lot of this comes down to a loss of confidence. Once you lose their confidence as a driver, it's pretty much game over. That's why sometimes you see these young drivers get into very competitive seats with a lot of high expectations. And, they fail to live up to them. Then they lose their confidence. And then, it just goes way downhill from there. Checo's obviously not a young driver, very experienced Formula One driver. But I think once, the struggles happen at Red Bull, we saw it snowball from there. Like this season, once things started to go downhill at the beginning of the season, then it just never got better. And it just continued to get worse and worse and worse. And then like the embarrassing moment, you talked about from Qatar, Matt. Green means go, and he literally just sat there like a knot on the log. I'm like, what are you doing? Why didn't you go? It was just just a comedy of errors in that type of situation. I just want to know what happened to Sergio Perez, because before Red Bull, he was a pretty decent race car driver, and then that Bahrain win, his best, and then he obviously the lows of the lows, especially here in 2024, is just definitely been quite a fall from grace for him as a race car driver, and in his life moving forward. Hopefully we'll see him racing something. I know he already kind of ruled out IndyCar, but he was open to racing and endurance racing, so it'd be nice to see him at the 24 Hours of Le Mans or the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Those are two races he said that he would be interested in doing, and I threw this out here in our group chat. Since Pato Award is not available, since IndyCar be racing at Gateway this weekend, why not Trackhouse bring out the Project 91 car, put Sergio Perez in the NASCAR Cup Series race at Mexico City? I think that would bring out a lot of fans since Pato's unavailable.
I'm with you on that. That'd be fantastic. I was thinking that when you were talking through it, but 6 Grand Prix wins as well. A couple of pole positions across it. Next week's breaking news: Vettel comes out of retirement to replace Perez. I've already thought about that. Yeah, Christmas Day. Well, actually, if he does that, there's a problem, because who gets 5?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who gets the number 5? That's the problem, isn't it? Because who's coming in taking it? I can't remember now. Gabriel Bortoletto.
Yeah,
he's coming and taking the 5. So if Vettel comes back, he has first dibs. So yeah, Gabriel will have to change number. So yeah, that'd be funny. Although we'll probably hear, knock knock. Here comes the honey badger as well. That'd be quite funny if that happens.